Welcome to another episode of the SaaScast, the show that flips the traditional podcast format on its head. Here we have one simple rule, one question, one answer from the biggest names in the SaaS world. Today, we're thrilled to have the founder of Daisy Intelligence. This isn't just another run-of-the-mill SaaS platform. It's the future of AI-driven solutions in retail merchandise and insurance risk management. And here's a number that's hard to ignore. Their solution boasts an astonishing 10x net income ROI. So I'm sure you're curious to know more. So am I. Gary, it's an honor to have you with us. To kick things off, can you share a little bit about yourself and your company?
Hey, Jason, thanks for having me on. And yes, I'll tell my story. I'm a graduate of engineering science at the University of Toronto, a degree in aerospace engineering, and I did a master's degree in computational fluids at the Aerospace Institute as well. And while I was in undergraduate and graduate school, Jeffrey Hinton was a professor at U of T, and I was fascinated by machine learning and neural networks. So I was exposed to all of that. I attended all the industrial seminars and courses that I could back in the 80s and 90s. So I've kind of been in this domain for 30 plus years. And so when I graduated from university, there was really not much of an aerospace industry in Canada, and I didn't want to move. So I ran into big corporations, and I was shocked at how little math and science was used in decision making. I thought these big buildings with logos on them would be super advanced, and the shock at how little math and science actually was there. So I built this accidental career to bring math and science to business, always with a view to help them make better operating decisions that drive net income and growth. I worked for Loyalty Group, or Loyalty One today, that runs the Air Miles program for 5 years, built a machine learning consulting practice for them, was one of the first worldwide users of IBM's data mining. That was the buzzword for AI back in the 90s. So I was one of the first 4 users of IBM's machine learning technology. And they flew me around the world, and I trained hundreds of IBM consultants on how to do machine learning. And then I ran IBM's data mining and data warehousing practice for 3 years, and then thought I could be better at this very narrow discipline in machine learning. I learned along the way that supervised learning doesn't really work for complex problems. And I feel the world is having the moment today that I had by myself 25 years ago, where I thought predictive modeling could do anything. And then I realized, no offense to Loyalty One and Air Miles, but all their presentations were like 1,000 times ROI, 100 times ROI. And then I would open up the annual report of one of the companies, and I'm like, I didn't see any movement. And I realized that supervised learning just moves money around the building. And I went more back to my aerospace roots around control theory, which the aerospace world has been doing. So, Neil Armstrong didn't really land the lunar lander on the moon. The computer fired the retro rockets 1,000 times a second. Neil set the path, the strategy, the objective. And so I think that's the branch of AI that we use, is more related to optimal control and reinforcement learning. And founded the company in 2003, ran it myself for 13 years, funded it myself, wrote 100 million lines of code, and then raised some capital and got on this current path. Worked with some amazing companies and customers. So although I said big companies don't use math and science, they are brilliant and successful. So just because they don't use math and science, that's just an opportunity. And so
I just need you.
I just built this career of which has been great fun to get to this point. I have a lot of fun for 30 years. So
wow.
That's who Gary Saarenvirta is. Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you so much for the inspiring introduction. It's so rare to find a founder that not only codes and built the initial product himself, but then also, built the business and then got funding. I think that's very rare, and a message that I think more entrepreneurs need to hear, that you can do things by yourself and grow really meaningful businesses that are profitable, and then use the funding to scale and grow when you need it. So Gary, my question to you is, as AI becomes more embedded in our lives, there's obviously this psychological debate around its role in decision making. So how do you envision the balance between human intuition and machine learning and in machine intelligence in the coming decades, especially in sectors like retail and insurance?
Yeah, I think our vision is to go to every industry sector. And I think every industry sector has decisions that are beyond human ability, right? Okay. And I think that's where we should use the technology to do things people can't do, and let people do what technology can't do. So I would argue, the best customer service agent in the world is a human being. And you'll never be able to build a computer as good as that best customer service agent, that human empathy and human interaction and intuition and strategy and creativity where there's no data. Now, if I had to pick the optimal combination of 2,000 items to promote out of 50,000, well, 50,000 choose 2,000. If you do the combinatorial math on Wolfram Alpha, is 10 to the power of 3,600. There's only 10 to the 80 molecules in the universe. So I would say it's beyond human ability to pick the optimal combination of products and prices and weekly promotions, which is why retail is less than a 1% net margin business. And similarly, there's in every industry has a business processes like that human beings try to make decisions on. And these are astronomically difficult jobs. And I think that's where the technology can take that decision making that's highly quantitative, highly repetitive, happens millions of times a day. These decisions get made. And that's the division I would say. Let people do what people are good at. Let's elevate people out of the mud and the complexity of these processes. So we want to elevate human beings to do what humans are best at and use technology to do what technology is best at. I'm against generalized AI. Why do we want to replicate human beings and leave no space for ourselves? Like technology should serve people, narrow AI doing narrow, expensive things. So that's how I see the world dividing. Will it come to pass like that? I don't know, but that's what I advocate for. And that's what Daisy does. We make very narrow decisions. My AI won't make you a cup of tea, won't be your buddy. You know, people talk about Daisy like Daisy's a human being. They say, what did Daisy recommend this week? But we do narrow decision making for, complex business processes that has substantial business value that helps humanity. And then hopefully we can elevate people and increase their job satisfaction and satisfy the consumers of these businesses and increase consumer sat.
Exactly. And hopefully Daisy doesn't have to make coffees because it's requiring humans to make less decisions and allowing them to focus on the things that they do well.
Yeah.
And so, Gary, my last question is, AI-driven solutions are, being criticized now for being black boxes where decision-making processes are obscured. And so how do you ensure that, your decision as a service remains transparent and explainable?
I think this is using the scientific method. So you cannot learn the dynamics of complex systems from data. So even if I knew the location of every molecule in the universe and its position and velocity and its full history since the Big Bang, I could not learn Einstein's theory of relativity. And so we have somehow seemed to have flipped science and the scientific method inside out, that because I have this data that fell in my lap out of my IT systems, it must explain how the universe works. And that's not the way science works. So come up with a mathematical theory first, and your mathematical theory has the explainability. Like in retail, if you buy ground beef to make a pasta dinner, you'll buy pasta, tomato sauce, cheese, bread, wine, salad, fixing. That's a meal pattern. That's a halo. Because I bought Pepsi, I didn't buy Coke. That's cannibalization. Because it was on sale, I bought 4 weeks supply. That's stock up and pantry loading. Because it was a lower price, more customers bought it, because that's price elasticity. Because I put it on the front page of my e-commerce site and had a TV ad, that's promo elasticity. I buy different products at Christmas than I buy in the summer, that's seasonality. So all of those, every retailer understands every one of those things. So if I create a mathematical theory based on all the facts that we all know, then it becomes explainable. So I could say, why, Gary, did you recommend bananas this week? Well, bananas has a halo. For every dollar of bananas, you sell $3.7 of something else. It's very elastic. It has a high penetration, and it's better than the other product you would have recommended, which is lower in those things, right? So we can explain it based on the theory. So if you use the scientific method, there is an explanation. Whereas if you have a data-driven black box, it's very difficult to have an explanation, and you have to have a separate process to create explanation. So I think using a fact-based scientific method to come up with a theory of the industry, I think that is the approach that we need to take. And I think this would address some of the chat GPT issues and a lot of these, but there's no bias in the laws of physics. There's no bias in what I said, promo elasticity, seasonality, halo. Those are just facts. There's no bias in that. So bias and explainability are taken away by using the scientific method. And for some reason, computer science world of data-driven learning has flipped science on its head. And science has worked since the Renaissance, right? You know, like linear regression was invented in 1805. Probability was invented in 1654. Like,
Wow.
if those were the panacea, they should have run their course hundreds of years ago, right? So,
yeah, I love how your platform is leveraging science, things that are proven and explainable to help these industries grow their revenue, make it easier for them to make decisions. And obviously, you're doing a fantastic job with giving them a 10x net income ROI. So I can see how, being able to be transparent and explainable is helping increase your adoption of your platform. And then when customers are seeing the results, obviously it's just going to help you grow in that market and find new markets as well. So Gary, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate having you on today. You built an incredible business. It's inspiring to see AI leaders like yourself building great SaaS platforms and helping markets like retail that we rely on every single day plan better and reduce waste and deliver us better products.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Jason. Appreciate it.